Hey everyone, welcome back to TSL. I'm Meg LaFauve.
And I'm Lorien McKenna.
And today we're going to be diving into Act Twos. What makes an Act Two so challenging and what might be helpful in how you approach it?
And today we got some specific questions from you on our TSL Workshops community board and our Facebook page. But first, we're going to do our adventures in screenwriting, and Meg is going to start this week.
Oh,
Surprise!
Twist.
That's our Act 2 twist.
There's our twist. So yesterday I went to a talk in which the Harvard Business School author and teacher Linda Hill was interviewed. And she has a new book out on leadership called Genius at Scale. You know, how do you take innovation and scale it up? And she said something that I thought so applied also to being a writer that I wanted to share it, which it breaks your brain a little bit, but just stay with me, which is she said, love the problem more than you love the solution. Okay. Meaning at first, even the interviewer was like, what? I don't know how to love a problem more than my solution. But it actually starts to make sense when you start thinking about it because we're so desperate for a solution because our brains do not like uncertainty. It makes us feel like we're in survival mode. So we're just looking for any solution to get out of feeling bad about ourselves and that this sucks and this is such a big problem. I don't want to sit here. So you think of something and then you just go, that's it. That's the solution. And you run forward. The problem is it the solution? Maybe not. Maybe it's going to create a whole new raft of problems. Or maybe it is, but it's not deep enough. Or it is, and it's not going in the right direction. Or it is, but it's slightly off. And that if you love the problem more, i.e., I love being and really facing this problem and all of its depth and uncertainty, you will take more time. You will actually stay with it and probably come up with a true solution. And you're not worried when if you love the problem, when the solution is wrong, you're not like devastated because you now have to go back to your problem, but you love your problem because your problem is you. It is you as a writer. It is your story. It is something you're learning, right? So don't be afraid of it. Go back to it and let that solution go. Just let it go. Because the other problem is you don't let your solution go because you're so afraid of the problem that now you're half-assing all the new solutions versus, yeah, no, that doesn't work. I got to let that go and go right back to the problem. And it's really hard to do. I don't do it either. But when you do it, you can go deeper, faster, stronger in the writing. So I thought that was worth repeating to you guys. And it kind of goes with what we were talking about on another one of our other episodes, which is you intuitively know deep in your guts if your solution or your idea is going to fly or you're kind of cheating. You're kind of, you're kind of mushing it through just to be done. Well, eventually that's going to come up and you're going to get notes about it or it's just not going to work. So it's kind of goes along with that, like being kind of honest about it and just sitting in the uncomfortableness of your problem. Lorien, how was your week?
It's the word prescient? Prescient, like that. It's super. That's exactly what I've been going through and talking about on the podcast for a long time about what is my want, what is my path, what am I supposed to be doing? This sort of like jumbly, having a hard time focusing and feeling like I'm abandoning the out. I'm so attached to the outcome, which is the solution, right? Which is being on a TV show, which is selling a feature, which is, the end result of the work of writing. And I've forgotten the doing, the working of it and how much I do like the writing. And I make a joke about it. Ugh, everyone hates the writing. But like when I'm in it, it's the most delicious thing. But I find that because I'm so attached to the outcome and the gig economy of the industry and the state of the industry and like, is this sustainable? And can I afford my lifestyle in this economy? Like all of that is stopping me from doing the work, which is essentially trusting the process, right? Like at Pixar, I spent 3.5 years working on Up, and boy, was it a process. And the movie came out and I watched it at the wrap party and I was like, oh, cool. But what I remember about working on that movie was the work of working on the movie. The hard parts, the fun parts, the making the relationships, the things I learned about 3-act structure, specifically Act 2. But that it's exactly what I'm trying to figure out right now, and yes, you need a want and a goal, and yesterday, it's funny, I was like, "I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do this," and I immediately went for that because it felt good to have, like, a direction, and I got the same feedback about that thing of the state of the industry, which is like, "Well, teaching is really kinda hard and up in the air right now," university teaching, which is something I used to do, and it's kind of this hot I was like, okay, this is a message that I need to be doing the work, which means writing and making. But I have done that thing where I've gotten so attached to the outcome, like spinning those worst case scenarios out,
Yeah.
the catastrophe. But my worst case scenarios go like this. Okay, best case scenario, I get staffed on a TV show, but then what? Right? I'm so far in the future, right? Like, well, I got on a season and then what? I'm back where I was before, right? So I don't have any fate. And it's always been this way. It's not like my friend David pointed out that, like, it's not like this is new information, Lorien. This is
Oh.
always been the industry. Why are you, like, upset about it now? And,
I do
so
think, I mean, it's human and not, and even smart to be thinking about your future and jobs and living and kids, and like that's all
mhm.
very real, right?
Yes.
And the state of the industry is real, and it's just when we so are in that we're not writing, we're
Mhm.
so in that we're not doing the work, or we're so in that we're jumping to solutions that aren't really good solutions for us because we just want to get out of it.
Yeah.
So I have compassion, empathy, and the reality of what you're talking about. It's just more the how, right? The what
Yeah.
is the what, like it is. That's the
Mhm.
what.
Mhm.
And my brain can make an anxiety spiral out of pretty much anything.
Anything.
The
Give me
smallest
a topic.
thing. I could look around me right now and
Yep.
go into an anxiety spiral.
Yep.
Uh,
Same. Don't look around. Don't do it. I just had 4 or 5. I'm looking at my desk.
I'm
Like,
literally
no.
like, "I think there's a dead bee on my desk. Why is
Yeah.
there a dead
No,
bee on
I
my desk?"
have a
Like, I
old
literally just
dog
did it
treat
in, like, 2
and
seconds.
yes. Yeah. Same.
Um,
Yeah.
Gosh, now I'm in it. Shit, I gotta get out of
Yeah.
the
Get
spiral.
out, deep
Focus
breath.
back on, we know what we're talking about, and we're gonna help you with act 2s. Go right into the
Well,
frontal lobe. 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 plus 2 is 4. Okay, frontal lobe, back on.
easy, easy. Act 2, so easy. But it
So
is what we're
easy.
talking about.
Yes,
Exactly what we're talking about, which is you have a problem and you have a plan to solve the problem, and that's act 2. And then ultimately it's probably the wrong
a lot
plan
of times it's the
and then maybe
wrong plan, and even
right?
maybe the wrong goal for that
Yes.
character. Could be.
Yeah. And so I but before we move on to that, I find that this process that I'm in right now is my version of writer's block, which I don't believe in. I don't think writer's block is like a real excuse not to write, but I've gotten stuck in this whatever, the
Churn. Let's call
I
it
have
churn.
I have to love the problem, which means I have to be doing the work. And so because the outcome feels to me unattainable or frustrating or whatever, I'm not trying to solve the problem. And that is why we get stuck in act 1.
Yes, it's much more fun.
Rewriting act 1, catastrophizing. Here's how my character could be set up. Here's what the problem could be. And you never get into act 2 and there's no movie.
There's no movie.
So let's talk
Act
about
2
what
is
act
the
2
movie.
is.
Act 2 is the movie.
Yes. When you see a trailer for a movie, they are showing you act 2.
Yes, because that's the tone and how it executes, and what's the fun, and the character movement and the relationships. The relationships, it's act 2. It's
Yeah.
act 2. Um,
Like if you look at a genre movie, like a heist movie, we know the tropes of the heist movie, the what are they trying to get? Why are they trying to get it? Putting the band together. But the heist itself is the movie. So what they're showing you is breaking into the museum, the car chase, like a hint of a betrayal moment, like the relationships, a fight. They're showing you the action and the drama and the conflict of act 2 in the
which is the
trailer.
promise of the premise.
Mhm. Yeah.
Right? Which you also, act 2 also has to deliver the promise of the premise that you have set up. which is all why we don't wanna do it because we actually have which is happening to me right now because I pitched something and I was like, "I don't really actually know how I'm gonna do this." And
Yep,
now it's like, "Oh, shit.
yep.
I gotta do it."
I have a beautiful outline slash treatment written for a 30-page pilot that's I'm on script on. It's 15 pages long. So you would think, great, just take that now and write the scenes out a little bit more. But I know where it's gonna fall apart.
You
Like where
do.
I cheated. And then he realizes, dun dun dun. I'm like, that's
Mm,
really
sure.
visual.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know. That's usually for me where the cheat comes in, and I think it depends on the writer, but my cheats are usually I tell you what's gonna happen to the character, but I don't tell you how, because I don't actually know what the plot is and how the hell that's gonna happen. I have no idea. I'm sure
My
other people who are plot driven do the plot and they don't know how the emotional stuff's gonna happen, but for me, it's like,
it's
I
emotional
know
stuff.
all the emotional
Yep.
beats, but then if you're like, "But what am I seeing?" I'm like, "I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't
Yeah.
know. I'll figure it
Uh,
out."
okay, so what does promise of the premise mean?
Well, like you said, if you've got a heist movie, there is a lot of promise in that very just the plot of a heist, right?
Mhm.
Um, that you have to deliver.
Okay, I'm working on a heist movie right now. I mean, I not working on it because I have many, many other projects ahead of it, but yesterday I came up with a heist movie. You know why? Because I've got other projects I'm supposed to be finishing, and I thought, "You know what I'm gonna do? I
Exactly.
am gonna write down this idea and think about it all the time." So, what I'm doing is thinking about other heist movies and the parts that I loved about them, and the promise of a heist movie is that there will be a heist, is that they will be breaking in somewhere and boosting something
Yes.
because of a very strong because they get something from it. Not that they get that thing, but that thing gives them access or buys or gets them something, which is the
The
solving the
emotional
problem of
part.
it.
Yeah.
But that's sort of for me, that's the promise of the premise. And National Treasure is always the one I go to for a heist movie because come on, it's delicious.
Well, and it's also you have to then as a writer be like, okay, the let's call them tropes or tenets. I like tenets better of
Mhm.
a heist movie, which you do have to hit or
Mhm.
twist, but you're going to twist some. You're going to do it slightly different. Like you can't twist all of them because then we don't know what you're doing. But it's you're going to tell it backwards. You are going, if you go to an extreme, but then if you actually put it forwards, it's pretty traditional elements, right? Or who's doing the heisting or what they're heisting, or better yet, you're going to have to do the how, right? To me, a heist and why I don't particularly love writing them is it all comes down to the plot of how, and that you're going to surprise and delight me by the how. And then I just go, I need to go to bed. I don't know. I don't know.
And the conflicts come up with, "Here's our plan. This is the schedule. We know when the guards are here, we know when the alarms are," and then they get there and either someone on the team fucks it up, creating a conflict, or things are not what they expected. And so you have to like, how are they gonna solve that problem? That's such a great character reveal, right? The cool character kind of freaks out for a minute because things are out of their control, or the one character figures out a solution on the spot, so that's the fun of it, is
And we're just
the
using one
conflicts.
genre as an example, but every
Yes.
movie has a premise promise that we want the deliciousness of that now in act 2, which is why they're hard. Come on, people. And why you're going to spend a lot of time in act 2 in your writing as it all falls apart in act 2. So, act 2, the way I think of it structurally is 2A, which is end of act 1 to the midpoint, 2B, which is the midpoint to the end of act 2, and then the third act. I'm just saying that up front. So as we talk about 2A and 2B, you know what we're talking about. So what I do when I'm gonna come up with or working on ideas, I always make sure that I know those big structure points in terms of at least the character and the main relationship, and hopefully some of the plot of that genre. So where are they at the end of Act One? What's their goal and their plan? What is happening just in general in 2A? I personally like the save the cat terminology, fun and games, because it
Mhm.
reminds me that no matter, I'm not talking about the tone of your project now, I'm talking about the events you're finding, and I'm talking about the character revelations. it's fun. It's actually fun to change. It's fun to come up against challenges. And fun, by the way, doesn't mean that the character, are having fun, but we, the audience, are having fun. It's not too scary. It's not too crazy yet. The stakes seem not too intense yet. And maybe even the plan is feeling like it's working, right? Like it's hard and it's challenging and the antagonism is still happening, but it's kind of fun. And the relationship growing feels kind of good, or even if it's bumpy, there's something delightful or delicious in that relationship that's shifting. There's some sort of enjoyment happening, I guess is a way to say it. I think
Mhm.
that's why fun in games to me in 2A, and also why a lot of people still like to write 2A because it's still fun.
Well, it's like the beginnings, like you've met the person that the person you're supposed to be with, and then it's the dating and the romance and the discovery. It's like you're falling in love with whatever it is you're doing or the other person. It's that and things are moving forward and like, ooh, it's and things are opening up to you in a way as well as a
Right.
character, right? Like, oh, I'm a little bit outside my comfort zone.
But
This
I'm
is
okay,
exciting, but I'm
like.
okay. I didn't die. Yeah.
Right. Now, I would say, in Nemo, they immediately run into sharks, which of course is not, it's scary as hell and it doesn't feel like fun and games, but it is actually, when you look back on it, one of people's favorite scenes because it's so fun. Because those sharks are so fun. They're kind of comedy sharks. You know what I mean? They're scary as everything, but there's also something really delicious and delightful about them. Um, so again, and not it's not tone. It doesn't mean you can't be doing something scary. It's just rompy. It feels rompy, right? Like run away kind of stuff in that particular sequence. Um, I in animation, I think this is true of live action for me too, but the first scene of 2A is always one of the hardest because usually in animation you've transitioned into a different world.
Yeah.
And, we used to go back and forth in the room. I'd be like, this is not 2A. This is the end of act one because
Yes.
she's in the new world and she's got to come up with her goal and her plan. And they'd be like, no, it's the first scene of act two, none of which is relevant. We're having this argument because none of us want to actually deal with the problem and the hard problem. So we're having a conversation about semantics. But for a feature writer, you can change worlds, but it doesn't matter. In terms of a live action, you're still don't have a goal and a plan. So Joy doesn't get her goal and a plan really together until she's already in the mind. And now she has to figure out what to do, which is why it's hard because suddenly you've switched worlds and it's what's happening, where is she, what is she looking at, what is a force against her that's going to get her emotionally to get to her new goal and plan. We had so many versions of that 2A that finally, and I remember Pete saying this is one of the hardest scenes, always, every time. It's going to be one of the last scenes we get, so let's just put something in because it's
Mhm.
going to be one of the very last scenes that actually arrives. And it was one of the very last scenes
And the
that
low
finally come
point
together.
scene, right, on Up, it was the scene called Trap, where Muntz catches Carl at the very end and burns his house.
Right, and I'm
That
talking about the very
y
first scene of 2.
right, but I'm talking about the bookend of that, is that the end of act 2 is also really hard, right? Just in terms of, like, how you start it and how you end it, and, like, how long those are such hard scenes.
They are, and sometimes you just have to put the bad version in and keep going, right? So, I find 2A can be hard, but then I really usually have fun with the rest of 2A, and then we hit the dreaded midpoint, and we had a lot of questions about midpoints. Go ahead, Lorraine.
Well, my daughter was learning structure in her English class back in 6th grade, and they had a little, the little line and then the triangle, and they were calling it the climax, the midpoint. And I was like, "That's not the climax, that's the midpoint." But I didn't get into it because, they were using
Right.
Frozen as an example, and they were clearly it was the midpoint, but they were calling it the climax. And I think what's confusing for so many of us is all the different books and all the different theories and writers who talk about this stuff, and we're all using different words. So what we're talking about when we talk about the midpoint, it's around in a feature around like the middle of the script,
50.
page 50. That is the midpoint. So that it should be the the fun and games has come to an end or has come to a crisis point. The fun and games itself Like, what is it that that midpoint is noting?
Well, and they can be, and what's interesting to me is when I was thinking about this, I couldn't immediately remember tons of movie midpoints because they don't stand out like that, right? They don't
Mm-mm.
stand out like that end of act 2 or the climax
Mhm.
or that fun set piece in 2A because but they are even though your brain may not remember them, they are servicing an incredibly important part because if you don't have a strong midpoint, your act 2 flatlines. So it doesn't feel like it's evolving. It doesn't feel like it's shifting and changing. So you just get a really long 2A, basically.
Yeah.
And it feels dull because your brain is waiting for escalation and what's going to happen next. And wait, this is the exact same thing that happened 2 scenes ago. What's happening? So the midpoint's very important for escalation and shifting. People talk about it's the character can't go back, meaning that could be physically, like there is no turning back. You cannot go home. Literally, you're in Oz. There's no going back. But I think that it's more important for me in terms of how I do it. Yes, there's physical, you can't go back, but there's also psychological consciousness. Like if if this is really 3 act structure is watching the human brain come to consciousness about something and shift and change, the change has started. 2A has created change, and you've woken up enough that you can't forget. You cannot go back, right? So that's an important part for me. I think the other important part that people miss, and I always forget too, is the stakes have to raise. They have to raise. The stakes have gone from fun to dire. So always you had stakes in your movie, of course, and they could be huge stakes, in Nemo, he's lost his kid. It's pretty huge stakes, right? But the midpoint, the stakes now even you've lost your kid and the thing that you thought you had that to get it back is you don't have it anymore. Like something in the plot is shifting stakes and expectation. Maybe that's another way to say it. The expectation even has shifted. Some people say that at the midpoint there's a false victory. If this works for you guys to look at your midpoint, right before the midpoint, have they had in that 2A has it gone to a point of we think we've got there. We think we're going to do it, only to realize you were fooled, you were betrayed. You thought one thing but it was another. There's a huge reveal that you didn't even know so that the plot goes whoosh and it changes and we're in the audience going, "Oh my god, we're realizing something. We got fooled. We had the false victory." So another way to think it is maybe is there a twist? Is there a new choice that's being made suddenly? Is the plan you thought in 2A the plan was working? Guess what? It wasn't. You went backwards. Whatever. Like it's no, the plan is not going to work. Though a lot of characters, because they haven't transformed yet, will still double down on that plan. They're just going to do it harder. They're just going to do it a different way, right? Which is again why they're going to go to the end of Act 2 because they're not really changed yet. They're still on their old trajectory. um, I also think the last thing I would say, and then I can give some examples of midpoints, is I think in rom-coms or buddy movies, they often start the main relationship starting antagonistically in that 2A. It's part of the fun and games is they're fighting, and they're fighting in such a fun way and in such a delightful, yummy way, so that they have to come together. The midpoint can be these two enemies are now friends. These two enemies, oh my God, they kissed if it's romance, right? But they've bonded because what you're going to do in 2B is take them back apart because now it's really hard. So if you're doing a buddy movie or a rom-com or have a main relationship that's starting in opposition at the end of act 1 and is coming together in 2A, the middle is the kiss. The middle is, oh my gosh, they're together, how delicious, but they're not fully together. They still have their own problems. They're still not, neither of them are awake yet. So when 2B comes and the plot's getting really, really hard now, and really asking them to take on challenges that they're not equipped to do, they can't do, they're failing. And maybe that's another way to think of it. 2A is you're winning, 2B is you're failing, right?
Mhm.
It's different. And you're failing and you're failing and you're failing, then that's so that you can break them apart at the end of act 2. So just wanted to that's a small side thing about those kinds of movies. Just some examples of midpoints that are just super clear. So in Indiana Jones, the center of the movie is he decodes the staff and basically is finding the precise location of the ark, right? So why is this a huge midpoint? Well, it goes from kind of a mystery to a chase. right? So 2A is where is it and having fun. And now it's like, oh my God, I have to get to it before the Nazis or get it away from the Nazis. Or it's not a tone shift, but it's a focus and a plot shift. It's pretty big. In Get Out, the midpoint is he finds that box of photos and starts to put it together. What's happening here? And that he's in a con and he's the prize and that they're going to overtake him. So now it goes from kind of mystery, what is going on, to survive and escape, right? So that's a huge shift as well. And my favorite, which is in my workshop on our Circle site, in my creating emotional characters, I have a clip of The Godfather, and I'm showing you the character polls. So the midpoint, the character polls are Act One and the end of Act Two, but the midpoint of The Godfather is the attempted assassination of Vito Corleone, and then Michael, his son, Al Pacino, murdering the guys in the restaurant. So those are huge plot shifts because basically Michael has been reluctant to take on his father's role and go into the mafia. Well, guess what? He does. He answers the call, so to speak. And at the midpoint, he shifts from, well, I'm just going to try to keep one foot out. Now he's both feet in and he's going to be better at it than anybody. So those are big plot shifts and I'm using them because they're the easiest to see.
Mhm.
Sometimes like an indie film or other things that might be a giant character or relationship shift. So I'm not saying you have to have that kind of giant plot twist, but or shift, but it's easier to see in terms of this explanation. And I also want to say that coming up on the podcast in these episodes, we're going to be interviewing John York and his new book. And he is all about midpoints. So we're going to have lots of conversations about midpoints. So if you are still confused and need more information, listen to the John York episode because we're going to talk a lot about midpoints. Um, so that's what I know about midpoints. Do you want to throw anything in there, Lauren?
Well, I for structure, I think a lot about Legally Blonde
Hmm.
because for me, but then I was just thinking right now, I always thought the midpoint was when she is at the party and she goes and she's dressed in a full bunny costume and it's not a costume party
Right.
and she goes up to Warner and she says, "I'll never be good enough for you, will I?" But in terms of plot, is it when she finds out that Brooke doesn't have an alibi because she was getting plastic surgery
Hmm.
and she decides to cover up for her, and so then she has to take like a stand, take a stronger pose than she's ever taken, even though all these men in her life want her to just tell the truth about it, tell what the alibi is so they can defend her, but she's like girl to girl, which is her code, right? That she protects her. I was just trying to remember where it was in the script, and I need to look at the script to figure it out.
Well, I mean, I do think the party makes she it is a big shift, right? She's not
Mhm.
chasing a boy anymore. She's chasing
Right.
herself.
And she's in that full ridiculous bunny costume. And it's like that's when she stops acting how she thinks she needs to act and starts actually activating herself in
Right.
terms of I'm going to take a stand here. I'm going to do this. I actually am a good lawyer. He's
She's
not that
valuing
important.
her value
Yeah.
is no longer he'll marry me. Her value
Right.
is gonna be I can do this. Why can't you think I can do this? And
Right.
that's a big, big character shift, but it's an interesting question about what is the plot shift.
Mhm.
Because the party I mean, it's a plot shift because she goes to the party and something happens.
What struck me emotionally was that I'll never be good enough for you, but like, what is the midpoint?
Well, the
That's
main
what to
point
your
is
point, I don't remember.
but
I
and our
don't
brains
remember
don't
it.
remember the plots, it's so
Yeah.
interesting. But I do think the party scene can be a plot shift
Mhm.
twist because I think that again, they don't have to be dramatic like Get Out, which is, "Oh my god," they're trying to hunt me or whatever. It can be but the "Oh my god" can be relational too. It doesn't have to be just in the plot. That shift in the p in of the raising of the stakes, the some sort of twist or revelation in the plot, in the relationship, um, like, if you think about it, she gets a new goal at the midpoint,
Yeah, so I
right?
guess that is the midpoint.
Dude, I'm gonna prove to you that I'm as good as you. not I'm going to marry you and you have to prove how good I am because by marrying me. Like it's a new goal
But I
almost.
love the line of, "I'll never be good enough for you," as in, I can never meet whatever stupid standard you have. Like, it's
Right.
just it's
So I'll be good enough for myself,
yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
So the other thing I would suggest if you do struggle with midpoints, and we all do, um, we have that exercise we've talked about in the podcast before of naming your three favorite films. And we don't mean your three favorite, like the most, auteur amazingly directed films. We mean you're in your gut emotionally. You've seen them each movie 10 times. Go watch those movies you've seen a million times and go find the midpoint. And midpoints don't generally line up in this exercise. It's really interesting. They don't kind of echo the way other parts of the structure will echo or the character movement, but still look at them to see in your favorite movie, what is the midpoint? What is shifting? What's changing? What are some of these elements that we're talking about? What are they? Do that work and that investigative work. And please don't just put it into Chat GPT. Actually go look at the movie because you and your brain and storytelling spirit have already emotionally connected to this movie, so it'll be more impactful if you actually go do that yourself. Okay, so 2B, after the midpoint now is propelling us into 2B. We mentioned that it's getting much harder. I think 2B is hard for people because they don't really want to beat up their main character. They don't really want it to be that hard on them. So they're kind of softballing everything.
Okay, I have a question about this. So I look at this as all the stuff that's beating that character up is stuff they've already put into motion.
That's
So
good. That's it.
they're essentially beating themselves up. So it's not like you're throwing these out of the oh, and then a car crashes into that. You're not presenting problems to the character. It's the stuff that they've already participated in, choices they've made in Act 2B, and then it's like it's all coming back down on them or
Yes, you
or
shouldn't have actually gotten out of the car, but you did. So now you're gonna meet the mafia guys or Joy.
yes.
No, you did that. So guess what? All these islands are now it's escalating because Riley's gonna run away or whatever's happening.
Mhm.
Like that, yes, I think that's a really ingenious insight that to be getting worse is all the seeds that the main character has unconsciously planted that are now arriving to beat the crap out of them. And why is that? It's because consciousness does not change from witnessing. Consciousness does not change from the easy. It changes from the hard. Things that changed you were like probably like getting kicked in the head. Well, you got to go and kick your main character in the head. That's your job, right? So, you should really be finding things that can happen in 2B that you even don't know what they're gonna do about it. Like, you don't know how the hell they're gonna get out of it.
And that's how
Like
you create a surprising, satisfying, unexpected act 3. Because 'Cause you've written yourself into a hole at the bottom of Act 2B.
yes, for sure at the bottom of Act 2B, you should not know how they're getting out of that hole because then neither will I. I had no idea how they were getting out from back away from when they're in the back of the mind. I have no idea how they're getting out of there. It took a long time, and hopefully David Olstein, because I had no idea how the fuck are they getting back. I don't know. So definitely try to write to that. And again, this is tone. I want to keep it. So you can have fun in 2B, right? It can be still delightful in a comedy and emotional and about love or whatever you want it to be. But what's actually happening in the plot is harder. There are harder choices. Maybe in 2A, things seemed kind of black and white, like it was very clear what to do. Well, in 2B, maybe it's not so clear, and either choice is going to cause a problem. So it's harder. It's harder. However, you want to make it harder, and think about yourself and why you're telling the story, and why would it be harder for this specific character, right? For this specific character, this would be really, really hard, right? I'm thinking of the stuff we just pitched that we have to go right. In terms of this
Mm.
section of the movie, what is the struggle now? What is
So
the interior struggle is she wants two things and she doesn't know how to, and it's being very clear she can't have both. I think in
right,
2A, she didn't even know she wanted those two things. But in 2B,
right.
oh shit, she does, and how? Like, it's getting really hard, and she's making choices that are getting this is the other thing. Those 2B choices are getting them deeper and deeper and deeper into the hardness, into the challenge, into the wrong direction. They might have been going the right direction in 2A, but they're gonna go down to 2B, which means they are now not they're not making good choices. They're not making good
So
choices.
if we look at Legally Blonde, her goal, get Warner back. And then she ultimately gets to the point where it's like, "Oh, I don't even want this, like, I don't want this anymore. I'm gonna go." So then now she's put herself in a position where her boss is sexually harassing her. Everyone wants her to flip on Brooke, and she's going to trial,
Right.
right? And
So
she's
hard.
fighting for that, but then she's like, "Oh my god, what am I?" Her friends are coming in from out of town to watch her. She's got the dip and slip, what is that?
I don't know, but I know
Dip
what you
and
mean.
slip, it's like everyone is there to witness. Bend and snap. She's got the bend and snap party there, the FedEx guy and her dog, right? Everyone is there to witness. And Emmett, the guy she's actually falling in love with, everyone is there and she's in court and it's her game. Oh my god,
Oh my
right? And
god.
it's a comedy and, but it's big
But the
stakes
plot
for
is
her.
hard. The plot is
Yeah.
escalating, it's escalating, it's escalating, and, um,
But her
the
goal
truth
changes, right, from get
right,
Warner to, um,
prove myself.
prove that Brooke didn't do it somehow.
Well, if you think about it, her overall goal is prove myself. The how has changed. The first how is because he'll marry me. That
Prove I'm
proves
good enough for
I'm
Warner.
I'm good enough. I'm gonna prove my worth because he'll marry me. And then it shifts to the how shifts to fuck him. I'm gonna prove my worth myself by winning this trial.
And
Right?
she
So
wins
the
it by
main
being
goal stays the same, prove
yeah,
myself, right?
but she proves it by being the version of herself that Warner rejected.
Right.
The I know about shoes, I know about perms, but I'm also brilliant, which is the part that he didn't give her credit for, but she discovers about herself. I just love that movie. I'm sorry. I
It's
yeah,
good.
I'm not
It's good.
sorry. I love that
Why
movie.
be sorry? Elle would
I
not
don't
be
know.
sorry.
No, she wouldn't.
And then we go down to the bottom of the end of Act 2, which again, I have a whole workshop on this if you want more information on our Circle site called Creating Emotional Characters. But, this is the all is lost moment. All is lost in terms of actual things. So it's not just that they lost whatever they were going for in Act 2 and the chance of getting their goal. That's happening for sure. If they created a relationship in Act 2, that's gone. Their original goal is gone. And probably they've lost all the stuff they had in Act 1 if they just hadn't even done this. If they hadn't taken the call, answered the call and done this, they have less than that. Whatever they were worried about losing in Act 1 to do this, they actually have lost that because you've
Mhm.
got to strip them down of everything so that they can see it. Because with all the other stuff is them kind of blinded, and now you've stripped them all of it away so that they and it's a death moment, i.e., we really can't know how they can move out of this whatever this is. Usually they're holes or pits in animation, like
Right,
they're
well,
literally
Rocky's lost a fight, he's lost Adrian, he's lost his trainer, like, he's lost everything. The problem, the solution, the goal, all of it is gone.
all of it is gone so that you can finally look at what you need to look at. And I was just having a conversation on the Circle site with somebody who was asking questions about this in terms of the response they got about their end of Act 2 was it didn't feel hard enough. And I said, does that mean hard enough in terms of the emotional shift in the character or the plot? So the emotional shift not being hard enough or earned is that it's not like your character hits the end of Act 2 and goes, oh my gosh, I now understand who I am and the mistakes I made. Let's go. It has to be in stages. How does that consciousness come? How does it arrive? You think about Joy. First, Joy is like, I got to get out of here. And she has to come to really face that you are in the pit. You are not getting out of here. First, she tries to get out and then she can't. Then she collapses. Then she mourns the loss of Riley and with these memories, and she's looking at them and they're blowing away. And she's moving through a process of letting go. She has to let go of her original idea. And she has to go ahead and mourn the loss. So she's mourning the loss. And then because she started to mourn the loss and confront these feelings inside of her that she's been avoiding, the gift that's given to her is now she finds the memory of the day they lost the game, which is sadness helped Riley. Oh, now she has to confront, I created all of this because I didn't allow sadness to do her job. So there's a reckoning of responsibility. And once that is accepted, now she's got to get out of the pit. That hasn't changed. So the plot is still hard. Now what do? Because you still have a problem in the plot, which is How the hell do you get out of this pit? But because you went through the emotional shift, now the answer comes to you and you can get out, i.e., the wagon, right? So it's these act twos are earned. They you have to really, like we talked about at the very beginning, love the problem of the end of act two, love it, sit in it, let them really have the confrontation and an impossible problem again at the end of act two.
And the thing with Joy, how I watched it unfold is that at the beginning, it's like all on her. She has to keep Riley happy. She's the boss. She's the in the control, right? As long as I keeping happy, everything's fine. And what she learns at in the pit is that the responsibility is bigger than that. It's not just on her. It's that her responsibility is to allow everyone to do their job, which allows her to use Bing Bong's wagon,
Yes, and
right? To get help, to be to so that all the pieces are working together.
yes, she has to learn to let everybody drive and let Riley be a more full, complex person, the way all parents need to learn that, by the way.
No, I
Um,
refuse.
yes, that your
No.
kids are gonna have all those different emotions, but it's also, it was very important to me, where did Joy get this idea that she had to be the only one that drive, which is why the scene with mom is in the movie and why I had to lay across the train tracks to keep it in the movie, because that is her marching orders. Mom's telling her, "Thank you for being our happy girl." She thinks that this is what she's supposed to do. She's not some evil or some arrogant megalomaniac. She thinks that that's what makes mom happy. That's what I'm supposed to do. So to give that up and realize, I think the biggest thing for me that Joy has to realize is this whole act 2 happened because of you, because
Mhm. Right.
you none
She
of it
was
would have
responsible. She took
none of this
responsibility.
would have
Yes.
happened. And again, this is a
Mhm.
transformative character.
Mhm.
Um, there's also claiming characters, which I think their end of act 2 is they're in the same place. They don't get their goal. They don't get anything that they thought that they were right about, i.e. Moana go wayfaring like she was right. It was her how was wrong, but now she's lost her how. So she's a failure because she has to go back and think, God, my act 1 I want song was wrong. Like, holy shit. I was wrong this whole time in my I want song, until her grandma comes back and goes, "No, you weren't, you dummy. Your I want song was dead right. It's the how you got wrong. It's not Maui, sweetheart. It's you. But you had to learn things from Maui. You had to evolve yourself so that you're ready to take on and be more powerful than you could have ever imagined in Act One." Right? So that's a claiming character. They
Mhm.
still have it, but it's slightly different. And I think there's characters that don't change, right? And they have their end of act twos are still kind of are more of, will they give up? Right?
Right, world changer
They're
characters.
world changer characters, and the world is refusing to change. And will they give up? Will they? And they're not gonna, because of who they are, right?
Right.
Like Liam Neeson and Taken.
I think the confusing part about the end of act 2 is that when I started writing, I thought that was giving up, like giving up. Like, I can't do it, but that is part of the process of grieving what you thought your goal, your responsibility, who you were was, your identity. You're grieving that. Part of that is giving up, giving over, but it's also all the phases of
It's
grief.
surrendering that, and so that you can
Right.
take responsibility.
But
Yeah.
it's not just giving up, depression, sadness, self-pity. Not any of those things are bad or wrong, but that it is more complex than that in order to get to the revelation that you need to get to figure out how to get out of the pit.
Yeah, like what if you as the Godhead storyteller, what is your main character doing in act 1 and 2 that if they would just stop doing it, or thinking that way, or insisting it be that way, things would shift, but they're not doing it. Well, they're gonna do it now at the end of act 2, unless it's a tragedy. And if it's a tragedy, they have a moment, they have enlightenment, and they still go blind and they force themselves back into blindness. They have a chance to see the light and they go, "Yeah, no, I'm not gonna." And that's why they're gonna go to tragedy, because they won't wake up right now. They won't.
Yeah.
They refuse.
So let's in this talk a little bit about need, what they need to learn, and theme. So there is nowhere in Act 1 and Act 2 before that pit moment when Joy has that revelation that you as the audience are thinking, you know what she needs to do? Let sadness touch those so
Oh,
that
love
it's
her.
more of a complex thing, right? Because when we talk about, we've talked about this a lot. Like when I was learning how to write, it was always what is the need and the want, and I wrote from need. right? Which is all emotional, which is all, relationships, no plot. I just want to say my early plays had no plot. It was all just vomity drama all over the stage, which was so satisfying to write, right? The catharsis, but like not actual drama, not actual plot or something for an audience to be like, yes, there's a surprise. So, in order to maintain that, how are you going to get out of the pit? And the revelation happens and you realize it a split second after the main character does or with her,
Mhm,
right? Like,
mhm.
and you're like, oh my God, sadness does with them, right? Sadness does have there is
Because otherwise
more.
you have the
Yes,
catharsis with the main character. If you're ahead of
yes.
her, you're dead in the water.
So the need is, you know what it is because you know the pit they're going to be in at the end of act 2, even if you don't know how they're going to get out of it. But if you telegraph that at all, if you're talking about need in your first 2 acts, it's
It's
like
done.
Meg, you've said, why do I want to watch the movie? I already know what happens. I already
I'm
know
waiting for her to
how.
figure it out, it's boring. I'm just like, "Figure it
Yes.
out." I'm getting annoyed, I'm getting frustrated.
So I
Why
would
don't
like
I
it if
can see it. Why
no
can't you
one,
see it? I mean,
I
there's
would,
there's certain comedies, to be fair, where that's what they intentionally want you kind of ahead
these
of the
are like
character.
hard R comedies
Yeah, I mean, so
where,
there's
yes.
buckets where this is appropriate, so don't there's no black and white, but generally, I wanna be with the main character,
Yeah. And
and
even,
that's all of act 2, that's it. I
yeah,
mean, look at that, Lauren, was it so
it wasn't
easy?
hard at all.
It wasn't hard at all.
But I think the watching the movie thing is a really great idea, and watching act 2 and identifying what that character has done to create the situation that they find themselves in and what choices they've already made to force them to make more choices in act 2. I I I and I know I talk a lot about, like, I write, I see what my character does, that I am letting them they came to me so I could tell their story, right? So for me, it's more powerful for me to just, like, I don't have any responsibility. I'm just going along for the ride, and then I feel a lot more free to let what happens happen. The second I go, "Huh, I wonder if there's a car accident here." My main character's like, "Well, I'm not getting in the car." But what I have been working very hard on is what you're talking about, Meg, which is deciding, is this a transformative character? Is this a claiming character up front? What is the beginning of act 2? What is the midpoint? Picking so that I'm writing to something, even if when I finish, not halfway through. Sorry, even if when
Oh,
I'm finished, see, I always okay.
for you, you have to
For
finish
meal, I bail at the
'cause
midpoint,
you bail too
everybody.
much.
I bail at the midpoint because it gets hard. I don't know how I'm gonna get through it. So that's my challenge. And what that means is I have to know what the bottom of act 2 is. I have to know what the pit is. And in absence of knowing, I'll be like, they're literally in a pit physically and they can't get out. Because I don't know what it is. Like if they're
You're
in
gonna have to.
space, it's like they're in the bottom of a moon crater and they can't get out and there's no one around. Like because otherwise, my brain is solving problems ahead of or creating new problems or coming up with new ideas. But to have those markers, which
And
is
it's
a
just a
discipline,
version, it's just a version.
that's the
And
part.
just pick a version and do it so that your brain can learn. I have the same
Mhm,
thing. If I don't pick a version, my brain's gonna go all over the fucking place.
mhm,
But just write to it, right to that end
mhm.
of act 2, right to that climax. I it's a version, it's a version. And probably again, staring down the barrel of having to go write a first draft, they're probably gonna suck. The versions are probably not gonna be great versions. That's okay. You're splunking. Just do a version of act
Mhm.
2. And the other thing I wanna say, because I always forget to say it, and I'm gonna do it myself, when you're looking at your 3 favorite movies or the 3 movies that are within this genre that you love or whatever, however you pick your 3 movies, because the character trajectory is similar. However you pick them, look at the plot. What is happening? How are they escalating plot? Not just the character movement, but what plot kind of plot are they picking? They're suddenly picking betrayal because in this specific way, right? She overhears. She whatever. Like just because if your brain is like mine, where it's all character, 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 you do have to get your brain up into plot sometimes. What's the most fun thing that could possibly happen right now? That it would be the most surprising. Just have fun with plot too, and two big people, and two, and any part of two. Have some fun with the plot. Take it places.
And this is loving the problem more than the solution. Talked about this before. is you make all those decisions. Here's the inciting incident. Here's the problem. Here's the plan. And you don't write act one. You know what it is. And you start writing at act two. I have the plan, and here's what it is. Because we get so attached to act one, that it can hold us back from bigger things. Like, well, I can't have that happen because we know that she has this little sister. It's like, okay, I get that. But what if she didn't have the little sister?
Exactly.
Like just, and that's like the free writing barf draft. Like, I'm just going to start an act two. And how are they going to steal this crown?
Oh my God, I'm committing to this because I'm so afraid of the act two of this thing that I have to write that I'm just
Yeah.
going to start in act two.
Yeah, because that should be the fun part of the movie to watch. It should be the fun part of the movie to write. But
Yes.
we get chained, locked in by, oh, well, I already know what the end scene is. I Some people do that. Like, this is all different. But this is if like you get stuck at the bottom of act one and or stuck in the midpoint and you're like, I don't know how. So this is an exercise, an experiment of discovery of what could happen. Maybe you don't even know who the characters are or why they need to get that thing, and you discover it in the argument they're having where they're trapped in the elevator together.
Right. So if you have problems with act two, just start in act two and just do it and don't allow yourself to escape into one. We're going to jump to your questions. So Mary Beth asked any tips on how to break it down into smaller chunks, act two, and seem less overwhelming. Well, that's how my brain does it. But my brain does it even smaller chunks. Like I do, I even break 2A into two. So listen, 2A is going to be having a beginning, middle, and end. 2B is going to have a beginning, middle, and end, right? Then the middle is probably 45, right? So I'm breaking it down even in more chunks. I'm kind of doing the Billy Wilder of it all, which is every scene has a beginning, middle, and end. Every scene sequence has a beginning, middle, and end. Every part of the act has a beginning, middle, and end. So that's how I break it down to not get overwhelmed. But the most important way when I'm just starting is I just look at end of act one, page 45 shift, midpoint shift, usually the shift of 2B is closer to 85 because you've got to that's the shift that takes us down into the end of act two. So that's how I chunk it out to not get overwhelmed. All right, Jen asked, I often find that what I think is the climax before tipping into act three is actually the midpoint of act two or vice versa. I often struggle with what the big midpoint changes. So we talked a lot about what those elements are. And here's what I'll say, Jen. Yes. Welcome. Like this happens all the time. It's not just you. It's not some indicator of your value or as a writer. It literally happens all the time. And often people think their midpoints end up being the end of act one because you've been gabbing away about stuff we don't need to gab away about. So my tip is to do that kind of charting I talked about as a version, write it quick. And if the climax is actually the midpoint, do that version. Like, you're gonna have to write those kind of versions. What I promise, Jen, is if you do that enough times, your brain, like in this deep recesses of the brain, like music, is gonna start to get it, and it will stop happening. Pretty much, it'll stop happening that your climax is actually your midpoint because your brain, like music, will start to get the beat. But you're gonna have to do it a couple of times, if not many times, because that's just how it works.
Yeah.
So, yes,
I
yes is
notice
my
in a lot
answer.
of scripts I read, act two starts around page 45 or 50. And then you get to page 75 and they're like, it's the end of the movie. And I'm like, or the end of the movie, the climax you've written on 75 is actually the beginning of act two. Let's see what that looks like, right? Like that big moment you've built to is, or that's the inciting incident. Like, how
What
do
would the
you,
beats be? You don't have to write the whole script,
yes,
just beat it
yeah,
out. What would
yeah.
happen? Go splunking, have some fun.
Especially in a like barf draft, or if it's something really personal.
Janine asked, "How do you handle subplots? What's the best approach you found to develop and pace subplots while still feeding the main plot?"
Well, there's the B storyline, which is the love story, right? Whether it's the romantic love story or not, but it is the let me ask you that, Meg. I question about this one as well, right? You've got the main
I'm
plot,
not a
which
huge
is
subplot person. I mean, we did them, of course, in Inside Out because we had 3 levels going, so we had a lot of subplots, but that was easier, honestly, because they're in a whole different place doing a whole different thing. But, I mean, I wonder if a lot of subplots are people in a whole different place doing a whole different thing. So, like, if you think of Thelma and Louise, the subplot is he's chasing her. He's chasing them. So we're tracking the guy who's chasing them as where the A plot line's going. Well, what is
mm,
that doing? It's creating stakes and pressure, right? Because we
mhm.
know he's coming, right? or you're checking back in with the family for the kid who's lost because your brain just wants to know what the hell happened, but it's creating more pressure on the A storyline somehow. The only reason a subplot should be in there is how it services the A storyline. It doesn't
Right.
have to service it exactly immediately in the plot, but it is servicing it because it's giving us insight
Right.
into the plot of A. And I do think that usually then they intersect at a very
Right.
specific point, the B and the A.
Well,
Because
like
if
the
the B is never going to intersect with the A plot line, I don't know why it's in the movie. Like, just for me, again, that might be a dealer's choice, but I think the subplot is going to eventually have to intersect with the A plot line.
well, the Ocean's 11 remake, the main plot is the heist. Sorry, I'm obsessed with heist because that's not what I'm writing, it's what I'm thinking about writing. And then the B plot is the relationship with Julia Roberts. Why he's doing the heist, like, that whole thing. That's a big part of the movie, and it all of it is connected and informs how it ends, like, his choices and what he learns.
Yes, it's informing it. It's giving insight. It's giving angles and perspective on the character, on the what's happening in the
It's
plot.
changing the choices he's
Yeah.
making based on that, yeah. This is from Maggie and then Robert. How do you resist the urge to pivot into a fresh idea when you get overwhelmed in the abyss of act 2? Well, that's what I've talked about this whole episode, which is
Wait, but
that
let's finish the
yeah.
question. When you stumble upon a better idea and it will affect act 1 and everything up to that point, and then after, do you stop? Do you rework the outline? So it's kind of 2 questions actually now that
Mhm.
I'm reading it. One is, I just gonna do a whole new idea,
Mhm.
like a whole new movie. Like, "You know what? This is too hard. This idea doesn't work, but that heist movie I'm thinking about, that's much better." Or it's something happens act 2 that's gonna change your act 1. Like, it's gonna completely redo your act. So those are kind of actually 2 questions, I
So
think.
I can talk about the first one.
Okay.
So Maggie, I'm with you. What I've realized about myself is that I get bored easily, and if I'm not good at something, I don't wanna do it anymore, and this is supposed part of my ADHD and probably my personality. So what I'm missing then is engagement, the dopamine hit. So how do I keep myself engaged? How do I keep myself loving the problem without being attached to the outcome, right? So that is, well, this is hard. It's not going to work. I don't like it. I'm frustrated. I can't solve this. But I have this other amazing, juicy idea that will probably be really easy to write and will be fun. So how do I make myself go back to the first idea and love it and be in it? So that's when I have to text Meg, say, I have a problem. I don't know what this is. And she'll shoot a couple of like exercises for me to do. And then I get engaged again because I have a new challenge. So what I have to do is own up to it, like I've done here today, and recognize why I'm doing it and figure out a way to keep myself engaged and in it without like, I just want to finish it. I have to finish it because for me, that makes me mad. Don't tell me what to do. So it has to be, how do I stay engaged in it and loving it? And that means something new needs to happen. So
Mm.
I need to like put a little dish of weird prompts on my desk and pick one out. But generally, it's interacting with somebody else who's going to beat me up a little bit.
And then for Robert's question, in terms of you get a better idea in act 2 and it's gonna shift your whole act 1, again, I say yes, happens all the time. In a weird way, you should expect it to happen. Just expect it to happen because you're going to write so many drafts of this script. Inevitably, you're going to find something in Act 2 that changes everything. That's why we always say go to the end of the script because you're noodling around in Act 1, not you, Robert, but all of us. And meanwhile, something's going to happen in Act 2 that Act 1 goes out the window, totally out the window. So, yes, and I personally, if I think, "Oh my god, this just changes all of act 1," I will just keep going forward because it depends on your brain. If you're the kind of brain that can stop and now go back to act 1 and reboot and still get to the end of the 3rd act, then do that. A lot of people use it as an excuse because they feel more comfortable in act 1, which is me,
Yep,
which is
me.
why you absolutely cannot, because your brain is just trying to get you to go to back 1 because it's safe, because it doesn't like the problem. It suddenly wants a solution, and the solution is, I have to go back to act 1. Whew, thank God, because I fucking hate act 2. That is not loving the problem. The problem is you just shifted everything, so stay in it, because the other reason is Like you think in that moment, oh man, this is going to change everything in act one, but it is good because it feels like a new special thing. It feels like delightful because
Engagement.
it's so new and shiny. But by the time you get to act three, you're like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't need to change act one. That was a new shiny thing, but I don't need that. But you won't know until you get to the end of act three. You have to see if that new idea in act two is going to pay off. And if it does, guess what? You're redirecting act one and you'll be happy to do it because you're so excited about this new idea that you'll be happy to go back act one versus dreading it or feeling like I have to. So my advice for my brain anyways, and for brains like mine, is just that hides in act one. Just go forward and get to the third act. And did that new idea, was it better or just different? Which is a big question you have to ask all the time. Is this better or just different? Because oftentimes our brains are like, it's a solution, it's different, yay! It didn't change anything. You still have the same problem. Or no, it added a whole set of problems I don't actually need. I was oddly trying to get away from the fire of this act two, and so I made up new shit so I could get out of it. But you know what? Does that pan out? Go to the end of act three. Does that new idea actually give you what you think it's going to give you? That's what I do. I try to
Yeah.
do.
And
Listen,
I think that
sometimes I'm like fail and I go back to act
yes.
one. So you
It's
just had it's on the day too.
it's knowing yourself.
Yeah.
Understanding where your triggers are, where your defense mechanisms come in, what has worked for you in the past, what gets in the way in the past, right? I know. And sometimes I'm prepared to confront them and sometimes I'm not. But I am aware. And the question of is it better or different? I'm always going to go, well, it's better. But it it might I that the ideas that I'm working on might be better. So I mean my thing is I have to finish. I have to get
You
all the
have
way
to.
through to the end, which is somehow really hard because
Because it's
of all the
scary,
things.
because what if I
Yes.
just spent 2 weeks getting to the end and it's for naught? Well, it's not for naught. I know that our brains think that, but it found out something really important, that that path leads you to a cliff. So shit, yes, you have to walk all the way back to
Mhm.
the place that you took the wrong turn, but now you know something really, really important. You learned something about your characters, you learned something about how they behave, you learned something that, I'm sorry, the story gods wanted you to learn. So they
Yeah.
sent you down the wrong path. Go back. Now go back. Our act 2 summary is just write it.
Yeah.
Just write the whole thing and write it many, 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 many times, and that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna write it many, many, many times
Loving act 2. We have to say I love act 2.
because I love the problem more than the solution. I love act 2. All right, you guys, thanks so much for joining us today. The Screenwriting Life is produced and edited by Alex Alcheh. You can head over to thescreenwritinglife.com to learn more about our TSL workshops, where we have amazing workshops, you guys, on a lot of Act 2 stuff over there. Go look at Pat Verducci's. Even I think Sheila's going to deal with it. Just lots of more information on Act 2 over on our TSL workshops.
For more support, find us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to thescreenwritinglife@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and remember, you are not alone, and keep writing.